and appreciate everybody as we get started here momentarily. Appreciate your patience and everything. We had a little overtime, and now we're getting ready for our final speaker of the day and of the night. But a really, we talked earlier. I personally had the fortune moderate Coach Jay Larinaga's talk, and we talk about Coach's sons. And now to have the great pleasure of I, of course, I as well am a coach's son, and now being able to bring in Coby Karl to talk with us, and just really excited about that. And and Coach Karl is going to go over. I took a sneak peek of his presentation. There's a lot here, and it's I think everyone's going to really enjoy it. And without further ado, let's roll up the sleeves and get into it, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Uh, Thanks for having me. It's truly an honor to give back to the community of basketball, which, as you know, from a coach's son's perspective, it's given my life so much. It's funny you mentioned Jay Larinaga, because Coach Larinaga was actually the only recruit going out of high school, going into college, that came to my house, and
Right.
I didn't go, but I ended up walking on at Boise State, and I'm pretty happy with the way it went from there. But pretty funny story. But yeah, as Coach said, son of a coach. My father's George Karl. Grew up around the game of basketball. Played professionally for about 8 or 9 years. Went to Boise State University as a walk-on, undrafted out of college. Made an NBA team for about a year and a half, and then started coaching about 5 years ago. So started off as an assistant coach in Westchester with the Knicks G League team under Mike Miller, which is pretty awesome. I know he's going to be on tomorrow, and to see him make his way to the NBA was pretty surreal as a G League coach. And then I got the opportunity from the Buss family and the Lakers to coach with the South Bay Lakers for the last 4 years, going on 5 if we're able to figure out a way to have a season. So yeah, let's get started with the X's and O's, I guess. When Chris came to me with the idea of doing a presentation, I usually lean towards the psychological side of the game, team building, motivation, how to create a culture. But so this is more of X and O's based, and I'm just going to give you guys the template from what we work from. And I have a lot of influences over my life. I don't know if this will be 45 minutes or less. It's a lot of time to put in there, but my ambition from this, and my intention from this time, is to give you guys a little glimpse into what I believe in and what's helped us with the South Bay Lakers, and then also what's helped me create some success offensively for our team. So this is our template from what we work from, and the title is How to Play with Pace, Aggression, and Creativity.
And as Coach goes through, those of you out there have questions, if you put the questions in Q&A, we're going to be sure to get them to Coach, and this way, we want this to be, have an interactive feel to it. So as things come up, put them in the Q&A, and when Coach takes a break, I'll read them to him.
Yeah. So, I mean, the verbiage that I use in this presentation is really important to me. When I say our goals, this was ours. This is something that myself and my staff, we sat down, and these are the things that we liked as a staff, and we thought work in the pro game, which we're coaching the G League, so every level is a little different. But our goals when introducing offense, the objective is we want our guys to be aggressive with the hit first mentality. We want to be hard to guard. Random is something that was introduced to me from my father when he was in Denver. They started running a lot of this stuff, and then dynamic. So this was when I played for Phil Jackson with the Lakers. the triangle offense, while very simple, it was very dynamic because it gave everyone with different skill sets opportunities to thrive within the offense. If you're a cutter, if you're a scorer, if you're a post-up player, if you're a passer, you can find your way in and out of the offense. And then we want to maximize our group's abilities. And this goes not just individually for the players, offensively talented players that we have, but also the combinations of guys. My rookie year, Luke Walton and Jordan Farmer were a great combination of players, and they played within the offense. They had their little games that they played, and each guy, as we've coached along the years, each guy kind of creates their own identity within what you're trying to do. So these are some of the objectives or ambitions for when we introduce the offense. So I'll just go through why we do it, what we do, where I got it from, and then the fun stuff, how we introduce it as a staff. So why? Because fast is better. So that's the first one. Every analytic now is pretty clear. If you studied the game in the last 10 years, is pace. Pace creates better shots, and the analytic in the first 6 seconds of the shot clock is the best percentage. There's actually some data at the second 6 seconds and after. There's fluctuation there, but the idea is that we want to play fast because it's better, because it's easier to score on the defense when it's in state of transition. So the second one is we want to create a team of great decision makers. We don't want to slow. We don't want our guys to be recipe followers. We want them to be guys who are creating the action and making decisions aggressively. And then the last thing, which I think is probably the most important thing for young players, which we coach in the G League a lot. And then I think for any individual in the game of basketball, is we do this because we want to learn how to play, not just what to do offensively, but how to play the game, how to recognize and react and read. So what will we be going over today? Bear with me, guys, because I don't really do PowerPoints, but this is what you'll see. So the look, the tools, and the plan, and I'll go through all three of them. The look is, I'm just going to give you the basic offensive format, what we're trying to look for, what we're trying to teach in the court or on the court once we obtain the ball off the defensive rebound, and how we're trying to run our lanes, and then some of the principles that we teach within that format. So I look at the game of basketball as an offensive player, as an artist. So I'm giving you a canvas, and I want our players to create their art within that framework or within that canvas. So the tools, this is where the stuff really happens, is the tools are the skills and the drills that we create, or that we try to cultivate within our culture, within our practice, within our player development stuff. And we'll go over that. And then the plan, this one is kind of the secret, which you'll see in the future as we get further into it. But the implementation of the offense is the most important thing that I've learned from my short coaching career, that I've seen pay dividends. So like I said, the format, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Vance Wahlberg's stuff, but he has been noted as creating the dribble drive offense. Kentucky picked it up about 10 years ago. My dad started running it when he was in Denver with Ty Lawson, Andre Miller, all those guys, also known as the gap offense. So that's the basic format, is where I got it from. In mixture of John Welsh is in there in terms of the format. My father, obviously, Chad Iskey, these guys that work closely with my father that I grew up around and learned from as coaches. And then the skills and the drills, a lot of them are from John Welsh, especially the player development stuff. I learned a ton as a player. I don't think I would have been a professional player at any level without working with John for years and years in the gym. And just these basic, simple techniques of teaching, natural teaching, where you're competing, where you're learning on the run, you're learning through failure. And then obviously Vance Wahlberg has a lot to do with the skills and drills. So all these are kind of mixed together, and then teaching it, a lot of this and most of it actually comes from one thing that my dad introduced to me when I was at a camp with him, a coach's clinic, ironically. before I started coaching as a head coach for the first time. So how this to me is the most important thing. So the work is everyone has the work, everyone has the different skills and drills. Like when we talk about skills and drills, how we implement it, I think, is the most important thing. Um, because the drills are going to be like, I'm sure you guys have much better drills than the ones I'll share with you, and more efficient or more tactical, or whatever. There's a list of the drills, but how we do it is the most important thing to me. And this is where I challenge myself and I challenge our coaching staff to create a space for growth, and to create a space for uh, our guys to have an opportunity to flourish within what we're trying to do on the offensive end. So what I'm talking about here is as you guys can read, is non-judgmental awareness. So I want to be the best listener and the best learner while we're going through this stuff in practice. And then what that means to me is rather than seeing a Jamario Jones, who we had in the G League, as a 4 or 5 man who came from and never shot a 3-pointer, rather than seeing him and just reading his stats and taking him for face value, I want to watch him. I want to try some things out, and give him opportunities to do different things. And what I found through those opportunities, with our experience in South Bay, is you learn a lot of stuff. So Jamario ended up playing. We ran out of point guards at one point. If anyone's coached in the G League, you know what I'm talking about. We were down to our 4th-string point guard. So Jamario started running point guard for us, from playing 4 or 5 in college and never shooting a 3. And then Jamario ends up shooting about 35% on the year, on about 1 3 a game, after shooting 3 threes his whole career at New Mexico. These are the examples that I'm very excited about. I get excited about as a coach to see something. As Jason Kidd likes to tell us in LA, we're trying to polish it up. So being able to see past the appearance. And then the second one, which is just as important, first not second, or first or second, either one, but is the belief and the trust. So the patience to believe and trust our players that they're going to grow and that they're going to learn and they're going to be successful within this format that we're presenting them. And a lot of this has to do with, sometimes you got to bring the right guys in and have the right skill sets. Obviously, we all know that from a pro or even lower level concept. But I do wholeheartly believe that if you give people an opportunity to learn and to succeed, without too much manipulation from above, that they'll learn better off, for the most part. I think a great example of that is Montessori school, if you guys want to look into that. So let's moving. Any questions as I ran through that? I guess I'll slow down a little bit.
Yeah, not as of yet, but we
Okay.
encourage anyone who has questions to put them in Q&A, and we are looking forward to getting to them.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to the format, or the principles that we teach our offensive. And when I say offense, I mean from getting it off the defensive rebound and going. So 80% of the game is played in the live ball situations. About 20% is played in on set situations. So we spend most of our time focusing and working through these formats and principles. So the simple format, as most of you guys who watch NBA or participate in the NBA, is with 4 out and 5 out. Very simple stuff. I'll just let you guys see this video as we run through it, so you guys can just see a visual of it. So ideally, we would want our 5-man here, who's Kostas Adetokounmpo. We'd want him running the other lane line, ideally, but you see the other guys are in pretty good spots right now. We have on the top of the screen is David Stockton, and then behind the ball is Gary Payton, and then I think running ahead of the ball is Andre Ingram. But you see him all wide, giving space to the ball here. So this is what we want to see as we come down the court offensively. Wide open middle of the court. We want access to the rim. We want access to gaps for penetration here. And we want to teach aggression here. So our mindset should be, this isn't an issue for Taylor Horton Tucker, but our mindset should be attack. So I want Talon seeing the gap on the right, that big gap going baseline, and I want him trying to probe middle if he can. So we want to attack here and open up space for the ball handler to be aggressive. So Costas reads it and gets into a drag situation. We swing it. This is all random, just playing basketball. So moving forward, now we'll get to the 5-out. So let's go back. The 5-out is pretty simple, right? Ball on the wing, the other wing occupied, both corners occupied, and then we're going to get a trailer. So Devontae Kaycock is our 5-man running down the middle of the floor right now. He doesn't have an advantage to score, and then rather than running into a drag, he just pops back, and we get into a delay action, which we'll go over. But just the simple concept, 5-out. Okay. So I'm just going to go through. I mean, simple is a great term, and this is something I truly believe in. Simplicity is king. Simplicity is the gold. So 4-out, 5-out, that's where we're going to start from, and then we'll teach some principles. I'll just go through a couple principles that we work through at South Bay that we believe in and that we've taught over the years. There's so many more that I need to learn and add to this, but I do prioritize simplicity. So these are a couple that we go through. So the go and catch, everyone calls this something a little different. It's pretty prevalent in the NBA now. And it's just not catching the ball in a stationary position, but rather as the ball's in the air, you run through the ball, or you run as if you're coming back to the ball like a receiver and then running through it to the rim. So you'll see Joel Berry end up, Alex Caruso gets into a drag, and then Joel Berry catches on the move. Very simple technique, but very, very effective, especially on these middle penetrations where the nail defender commits. We get a full committal from the nail defender. And then Joel, rather than catching it and then giving the defender time to come back in, we're going to just tell him to run through the ball and almost try to get to the college 3-point line on the catch, and then giving the defender no opportunity to get back in front of him. So you see it one more time. All right, weak side slot cut. Again, these are all just principles that we try to teach our guys, starting with player development, 1-on-0, 2-on-0, 3-on-0 situations. And again, we start here with the 5-out. We get into some weak side or strong side action with a pick and roll with our point guard. We have our 5 at the slot, and he comes down attacking the drop defender right there. So as you can see one more time, what we're teaching most of the guys is the bottom of the eye is going to come over and help. So as Scott Machado attacks here, bottom of the eye man comes over and helps. And then their 5-man comes down to take the corner man, opening up a huge gap right in the middle of the court for that cut. So just trying to teach our guys to visually see these things and then physically act on them as well. The last principle, which is a little mix of a go on catch and just a fill behind. Sorry about that. So just we get into a pick and roll step up action here, but teaching Jeffrey Carroll here, who's at the top of the key, to run through the ball. So this is just a strong side fill. LeBron did it, started with Cleveland and a ton in Miami. Doing it less and less as he gets older here, but again, just playing off of the principles that the defense plays with. The defense sucks down, looks at the ball, and we're just telling our players to try to run and get an advantage with using our momentum to be aggressive to get in the paint.
Yeah, really a lot of down, each of those 3 really downhill, downhill momentum. Do the players, is it their read to make that determination?
Yeah, so that's the whole premise, right? Is we want our guys to be acting. We don't want them to be thinking or reacting. So yeah, it's their read, and each player is going to do things differently. Some guys are going to feel comfortable putting the ball on the floor in that situation, but you see from this go and catch here, it's just we're in a transition set here, or we're just coming down in transition, playing random. our 5 steps up, sets a screen, and so it's just a read. We'd prefer Bonga to be a little lower in the corner, that strong side guy, but it's just a read, and a lot of what we're trying to look at here is we're trying to teach Joel Berry, the guy who caught the ball. You're keeping an eye on your defender. If your defender goes and commits, you should start getting your shot ready to shoot it or get ready to attack on the go. But yeah, the principle of momentum is humongous. It's why we try to play fast is and then teaching our guys to not accept a set in front of us is, I think, is a very important thing, and we'll go further as we go into implementation.
Okay.
Or any questions there? I see.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions, one of which, and I think they're both kind of, you're going to answer them, I think, as we go on here. But in the teaching of them, how do you make sure players are able to have control, that they don't travel, they don't charge, the teaching of that, right? You have the read, they're putting this momentum behind them. Now, what does it look like on a daily basis so that you're confident in the game that they're not going to travel or commit a charge?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think that's where it goes to, like, the belief, right? Having faith in your players that they're going to learn. Um, yeah, there's some skill development and some teaching that our assistant coaches do a great job with, and player development stuff. But a lot of it is once you show them how to do it, they pick it up really, really quickly, and especially once they see the advantage that they obtain through doing it. A lot of times, as you're seeing with especially the go and catch, is it's going to be coming from a weak side position. So usually on the weak side, the defense is pulled over towards the strong side, giving bigger gaps on the weak side. So we're just trying to. It's a race. I always look at it as a race. It's a race between the help side defender who's plugging the gap on the for the ball handler, and then the next guy. He's racing to the point of no return, where you can't stop him without fouling him, or and just getting to the rim. So I always look at it from we can go back, or hopefully we can go back. So I always look at it we'll go back to Joel's on this one again. I always look at it from a perspective of this. I'm playing against the concept of the defense, not just the individual defender itself. So Joel, once the nail defender commits here to Alex, Joel is really playing against this weak side defender in the bottom, which ends up being Cody Demps here. So can you guys see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's really playing against this guy. This guy is already out of the play, because especially the rules in the NBA is, if unless you're in legal guarding position in front of the ball, it's really hard to stop this defender. So we're basically teaching our guys that you're not worried about your primary defender. Your read will be more so on that weak side defender, which Cody Demps does not come over. Then he becomes too late here.
Would you say this is maybe a different layer, because of this, by teaching them to have momentum, you're teaching them in some ways they need to be more involved, right? So they need to really actively read the open areas and look to attack, where sometimes as we watch, like, you can see players have a tendency to be passive, and they tended to, like, just almost be anchored in a spot. So do you see that as a result of this?
Yeah, I mean, our objective, like from the start, is to be dynamic. So I want our guys to be dynamic in the sense that they're going to be a threat. While like a Jonathan Williams, who made the slot cut, is not a 3-point threat. He maybe shot one a game. He was a dynamic cutter, so he was able to find his spot within the offense to penetrate it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's as simple as it can get for me.
No, that's good. And just one other question before we go to skills and drills. It's asking, like, how would this work against a pack line defense?
Well, I think that's where the necessity to train or to help our players understand the initial aggression is so important. So like we had Scott Machado, I think, on a couple of these where like he's a great offensive player. He's not pictured, or he doesn't have the ball in this set. But like the objective here is for Isaac Bonga to attack. So if I think it works even better against pack line defense because like I talked about on this cut right here. I mean, from my understanding, pack line defense is where they're plugging the primary gap, like the gaps next to the ball, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So now if they're going to come over and suck to Alex Caruso here, that's what we're telling our point guards is we want you to create the advantage. So when you're bringing the ball down the floor, we don't want you to necessarily analyze more so we want you to be aggressive here and create an advantage where you're bringing two defenders. So once we start the domino effect of bringing two defenders to the ball, this is where all the training comes into play. This is where the go on catch comes. This is where that LeBron cut or Luol Deng cut come in. Making quick decisions on the perimeter and giving them that freedom to play within their strengths. This is where it comes into play. So as you see again, we're using this. I'm abusing this clip right here, but so this is a pack line defense, right? So Joel Berry, like I said, is yes, he's playing against this guy, but if a pack line defense, if this guy's going to come over, that's also the read that we're trying to help our guys with too. If Joel does go on catch, he's just making the next pass to Isaac Bonga here, who's going to drift down to the corner. So I think it actually works best against pack line defense, but it does become more important for your initial thrust as you come over half court to be even more aggressive, because we do want the 2 and 3 defenders coming to the ball and creating an advantage for the other guys.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, so now we'll go to skills and drills. So individual work or player development, depending on what level you're at, this is as simple as I can make it, but I think it's very dynamic, and I think this wrinkle is where I learned my father got a ton of advantage in working with John Welsh. So the individual work or the player development work, what we're trying to work on is we're trying to work on the shots that we want. So last year we and as everyone is going to, we want layups and threes. So we're working on those shots, and working on those shots means working on different variety of finishes, helping them be creative, helping our players learn how to finish against contact, learn how to finish in different ways with different hands, different footwork. And then we're trying to help them work in their areas of operation. So 4 out, 5 out, those spaces, where will they find the ball more often? And then within the situations that we encounter most. So pretty simple there, but I think the player development, to me, connecting it to your offense and teaching your players how to play aggressive, like the difference between going from third gear to fourth gear and going from second gear to third gear. We want them to be going fast. We want them to be thinking layup on their initial push. Yeah, we do want to lay up, but usually after teams start reacting to that aggression, if you have a Scott Machado who's a downhill driver, or Alex Caruso was pretty good at it. We had various point guards who were really good at it. So once you create that, is just continuing to play on, but working within it. And then so also the other wrinkle there is, so our guys, our wings are comfortable coming off a DHO from the corner and trying to turn the corner there, or comfortable coming off a DHO from the corner and reading, is the nail man there? Can I get into the paint, or do I have to make the just early easy pass to the wing? So, and then so again, how are we doing that is, one, the patterns and the skills. So these are the habits that we're talking about, 1-on-0, working through some footwork, working on dribble techniques, working on breakdown techniques, working on footwork for finishes around the rim, those basic skills. And then the second part, which is the fun part, which I think there's a lot of room for myself to learn, and then us as coaches to utilize within the game, is how do we create more awareness, and how do we create better decisions? How do we teach our players how to make better decisions? I I'm amazed at watching Luka Doncic play basketball because his decisions are so crisp and so clear, and he's so patient. And same thing with LeBron James, you know, Rondo. These guys, they're just making better decisions than, and they're seeing the game more clearly than us. So I want to put our players in a lot of situations where they start to learn some of these decisions. They start to learn what are we trying to be aware of. Are my eyes on my primary defender, or are my eyes on the weak side defender, or the strong side corner man? And part of that is teaching them the game of, you know, what type of defense are we going to be playing against, and then, you know, how are we going to teach this? How are we going to teach them to be successful within this? Is you got to play, you got to play. So it's got to be live, it's got to be competitive, and it's got to be free, so they can learn on their own. So we'll move on to the next one. So that was the individual basis. Now we'll go through the team stuff, that some of the stuff that we've used over the years that's helped us and that we lean on to teach our guys. And I just put these two numbers. This is completely me just creating a number in my head. But I want 70% of our practice to be experiential learning. And what I mean by that is I want our guys playing, I want our guys competing, and I want them to be live, like you said. Is we don't want our guys standing around. We want them trying to figure out solutions to equations. We want them to read situations. We want them to create this or have decisions to be made, and learn from their failures, whether it's a turnover or a travel, but give them that space and opportunity to learn, with wins or losses, and success and failure. And then the last 30%, which is going to be more so like for warm-up drills and for shoot arounds, is just those patterns and drills. You know, for example, you know, we'll move on right here. So some of the basics that we utilize is, I'll start up with the live stuff. Is again, we're trying to teach them to make decisions. So a lot of reps at making decisions, at being aggressive, working on their finishing. So just the basic ones that we all have used over the years are the 3-on-2, 2-on-1. The one variation that we've done with that I've actually liked, because it creates a little more focus and a little more competitiveness, which in my eyes creates more growth, is that we make teams. So you put 6 purple guys and 6 gray guys for us, and you keep score on the 3-on-2, 2-on-1. And you know, the way that we try to create aggression is we'll give 3 points for a layup or a dunk, and then 2 points for everything else, including 3-pointers. So just creating that mentality, unless some teams just have that mentality and you don't really have to, or maybe I need to be a better coach and teach it better. But that is one way that we've added some aggression there, is to, one, have competitiveness with teams, and then 2, adding that 3 points for a layup, just so we can get our guys reps at attacking the paint and rim. 3-on-2 continuous is where you put 2 defenders in each side of the paint, and then you have an offense coming down, and then a defender coming in as the offense crosses half court. Again, just trying to get as many reps as we can of just where they have to figure it out as they go. 4-on-2 continuous was actually, it's the same principle, with 2 defenders coming in at half court. Obviously, a 4-on-2 situation is pretty extraordinarily difficult for the defense, but Frank Vogel and the Lakers used it this year, and the way he taught it was, it's a live shooting drill. So you're going to get a lot of open shots with this, but it's live, real reps of shooting. So you're going to get a lot of looks, a lot of layups, and you're trying to find layups and wide open threes. You know, that's the teaching point that you can go with there. And then the patterns are the 3 or 4-on-0 stuff, 2-on-0, that where you're just running through the action itself, whether it's a single away, a pin down away, where you have a ball handler, the guy setting the screen, and the guy coming out for the shot, and going through different variations of that. So teaching them within these patterns of their options that they can play with to create creativity within the offense. So pin downs, flares, weak side cuts, and then those principles that we talked about. So some of those basics. So this is one of the drills we use, that would be a pattern drill, but Sean Nolan brought it to us, our assistant coach, who's been with us for 3 years. And we love it because it teaches paint attack, and then it teaches go on catch. It also works on some passing skills from getting to the paint and getting it to the weak side. And then also the other thing that it will help create habits with is once we get the ball into the paint and into the weak side corner is that quick swing, which I think is the most valuable swing there is, because the defense is shifting. One, it's flattened out, and then two, it's shifting from the strong side, which on the screen right now would be the right side going to the left side. So you'll set it up like this. You can add two coaches that like we did to have some, so they're not just going through like zombies, but they have to actually make the pass to the weak side with some defense. But you'll have two guys in the corner, one guy on the weak side slot, which will be the left side of the court right here. And then the ball will start right here with Joel Berry. And then behind him is where you can form a line. So we have on this court, we have 5 guys. So you have to have a minimum of 5 guys. You can have a coach jump in, but you can have up to 9 if you want. It becomes a little too long. I prefer our guys not to be waiting around during practice, but it becomes a little long if you have probably more than 7 guys. But we'll go through right here as I turn off the sound. So we're just teaching one, dribble penetration. We want to get a paint touch, skip to the weak side, immediately catching it, swinging it, and we're teaching this wing guy to catch it or going on the move here. So again, aggressive downhill, and then it just becomes a wheel. So same thing as you continue on. Pretty self-explanatory. One of the teaching points right here, you'll see from the swing from the corner that we found with our guys, especially our new guys that we get, is they'll hug the 3-point line. We don't want to hug the 3-point line. Again, like you said, momentum is a big key for what I believe in creating offense, is we want our guys to start on the run here. So obviously you're going to have eyes on your primary defender once you have one, but we want them to start on the run. So telling them to scoot back and then time it up on that catch, as he got a bad pass there, but using that momentum to be aggressive as your defense is shifting from weak side to on ball.
And how long will you go with this?
We usually you usually get like maybe 3 or 4. I mean, it's a feel thing. 3 or 4. Like this one went pretty long because this is the first time we did it. This was training camp for summer league a couple years ago. So probably 3, 4, 5 penetrations, and then our coach will call out, hey, let's get Steph a 3 in the corner. So then you gotta wait until Steph gets to the corner, and then you find a 3 for him. Or you get, hey, let's get a back cut out of the corner, or let's get a go and catch from the slot, finish it on top of the assistant coach's head, just so you can play with it and make it your own.
Okay, awesome.
And then the other variation of this that you can play with this too is you can start it with a drag, right? Come down, just have a coach set a drag screen here, and then it's the same principle, get into the paint, kick it. Or you can start it with a pin down where he comes off, he drives it into the paint, and then that just starts the action. Or starts the domino effect.
Mm-hmm. So
this was Vance Wahlberg's drill, I believe. At least that's my understanding from where we stole it from, and it's been introduced to us as blood drill, so I don't really know the relevance of it, but maybe you guys do.
Can you put my socks on?
No, can you have mommy do it?
No, but mommy's really hurt.
Yeah, go give it to mommy. Okay, thank you, sweetie. Sorry, guys, family calls. The blood drill is one second. Hey, sweetie, can you go out with mommy, please? Okay. So the blood drill is a continuous drill. Once again, a ton of advantage situations that we're going to have. So you'll see on the court now, you're going to have one defensive big under each hoop. So you can see here, there's a defensive big there, and then one defensive big under this hoop. You'll have a coach this guy's very important right here. He's kind of getting the action going. And then you'll have your defender toes on the midcourt line. And So the rules here or the actions created by, as we start the possession, the ball handler, which usually you outlet as the coach and you throw it back to him. The defender at the middle of the court cannot move until he touches the circle. So you're trying to get your ball handler wound up here to go as fast as possible. So it's a complete disadvantage situation for the guy guarding, which creates a 2-on-1 read here. So you see the defensive player has to figure out a way playing between two, and then we're teaching our bigs here to find space to get a dunk. Sorry, go back to 2 here. So I'll let it run a little bit just so you can see it. Again, we should be trying to get layups and dunks on this, and that's what we're trying to teach. Is these fast-paced situations with aggression, reading and making layups and dunks. Again, that was a good go-on catch by Zim right there. Defender cheated the play a little bit, but we still got a layup out of it. And this was a good example. This is the type of pace that we want our guys to play with. I think it's this next one coming up. So this is the type of pace that we want to play with here. Not letting the defense get comfortable at all. This one you have to have a couple more guys because hopefully you can have a sub defender for the big, but then the guards are coming in, matriculating in from the half court. So a couple moving pieces there. And then we'll go on to the next one, which is just the 3-on-3 version of that. Same idea, but this time you can put 2 guards in the corner, or you can put one big in the dunker, one guy in the corner. Trying to teach your offensive players to space the court as much as possible. Make this advantage the biggest disadvantage for the defense as you possibly can. So like trying to teach your offense how to utilize the space in these advantage situations.
And are you traditionally breaking them up into teams here?
Yeah, this will be 2 separate teams. So it becomes a little difficult, and I don't know all the nuances. You probably have to play with it. But yeah, you're going off of teams. So it will be, I think, like 1 white defender will be down here, and then 1 purple defender. So you kind of have your almost. It just stays the same. Offense is always going to be on the same court. Defense is always going to be on the same court too. That kind of made sense to me, but I'm not really sure.
And would this be a drill you do on a daily basis?
We usually do this drill early in training camp to try to teach that aggressive mindset mentality. As I was creating this presentation, I was talking to someone earlier today. I think it's something that we should do more often because I think it is very realistic in the pace and then the recovery of the defense. But in general, because in the G League we don't have a ton of numbers and we're usually dealing with guys in and out, we don't do this a lot because I think it requires almost 12 guys to really continue the flow that's necessary.
Right.
But I do know, Vance Wahlberg has some stuff out there, and I have talked to Vance. I think he did create a half court version of this, but yeah, I do think it's important to give them opportunities to get better. While I think we're in this era where our players are as talented and skilled as they've ever been in terms of creating shot creation off the dribble, even creativity in random. I do think that a lot of them lack the ability to finish at the rim, actually get all the way to the rim. It's a lost art in my opinion. So we'll move on. So this is just pretty simple: 3-on-3-on-3 and 4-on-4-on-4. I got clips of both, but this is, this is just your simple. So you have a red team at midcourt, 3 guys. You have a white team on the left of the screen over here, and then a purple team right here. And you can actually have a third team that's out as well. We might have it. I'm not sure what point in training camp this was for us, but and then this is we use this almost daily. So to answer your question, whenever we go live and it's not a shoot around, we'll do this almost every day. Just getting a ton of reps for our guys to talk about and go through some of the either the actions or just remember how to attack and play drive and kick basketball. So I put that some of the variations. You can go. Well, we usually start with no pick and roll and just guys having to play off the ball, using cuts, using dribble penetration, drive and kick. That's usually our first one that we start with. And then the variations that you can play with, you can do no dribble. One that we added this year that Jason Kidd talked about that they used in Milwaukee was a paint touch game. So every time the offensive team got into the paint, it was added 1 if they made the basket. So, just creating that mentality of rim attack, it fucks up spacing sometimes. And, you get guys gaming the system as any player will, but it does create a mentality of, you can have a three paint touches in a kick out 3, and it's a 6-point play. So you get guys excited about driving and kicking, and excited about attacking the paint with aggression. But so this is supposed to be the no pick and roll, I believe. And again, trying to utilize space a little better. We would like our wings a little lower on the wing. So as you see them running on the floor, they can play with any spacing that they want, but we do want this. This is poorly coached by us here. This is where I think the gold lies right here is this is where we need to teach our guys at this point in the possession. You should be going faster. You should be getting building your momentum up to go faster at this point. We don't want to be going the same pace. We want, once you get to the 3-point line or your primary defender, you should be going as fast, as in control as you can be, but as fast as you can be, because we want you to break down that initial defender. And this is where I think is the secret to playing fast, and then where you're going to get the benefits is really teaching your guys that we're not coming down to just set it up. We want you to attack and go get a layup every time you possibly can. See how he just sets it up, and we end up with a contested 3.
He's in kind of a probe mode and not an attack mode.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the example that we were waiting for, and he was one of the best at it with Scott Machado, was just that downhill. And this is what John Welsh taught me a lot, was that first bump. Usually offensive players stop when you take that first bump, but where the good stuff happens is after you hit offensively, the defensive team loses their balance and loses their positioning, and then that's where you can find some good stuff if you're able to maintain your balance and strength through that bump, which Scott Machado here does. So obviously all this applies offensively and defensively. You hear this is really good spacing for us offensively. Ideally, you want your wings a little further down, but you see the gaps that it creates for the primary ball handler. Terrible defense. We would prefer our defensive guys, like you're saying, pack line defense. We teach the pack line in a sense is that we do want to cover these gaps up here. So terrible defense by the red team here. But see those gaps and the opportunity that this ball handler has, can go right, left, and the paint's wide open with no defenders in it. So that's ideal.
There's a question here. What's 5 game?
Come again?
The question.
Oh, 0.5. Sorry, 0.5 game is is San Antonio's premise of when you catch the ball, you have 0.5 seconds to make a decision. So just teaching our guys to make decisions quicker. So in this sense, it's either you shoot, you drive it, or you pass it within 5 seconds. And that's trying to help our guys make decisions before the ball hits their hands. So they should have an understanding of where they want to go before before the ball hits their hands. And then going back all the way to the beginning of what we talked about is playing against we don't want to play against a set defense. So when we're playing, 0.5 allows you in a half court set to play against a moving defense, because if your decisions are quicker, then the defense is less stable. They have to move more often and make more decisions.
More pressure on them.
Yeah. And this is just a couple this is a clip of just the 4-on-4, same premise. I think we actually have, this was training camp, so we had 4 teams. So we had a blue, red, purple, and silver. And one of my mentors is the coach at Boise State right now, Leon Rice, and he said a really interesting thing, and I don't know, this resonated with the teams that I played on, and it has a lot to do with what I believe as a coach now. He was talking about college, in like whatever, in middle of the season, you're sitting there, they were looking at their team like, man, I thought we had a really good team this summer when we were playing pickup ball. And now look at them, and you ask what's the only variable that was introduced within that is we're practicing more, we're coaching more. So like I said, I do believe that players have as good a feel as anyone, because they're in the game, they're playing the game, they're feeling the game out. So a lot of it is I want our players to remember how to play, quote unquote, play the game of basketball, not just do what we ask them to do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite drills, the 4-on-4 on 4, and rewarding those that, when you score it, you keep it, and, playing and competing, and just having everyone there on the court, creates a real competitive environment.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I believe too is, to your point, is efficiency, right? I don't want our guys standing around, and especially in the G League, we're going to have to utilize all 12 players throughout the season, or 13 players, however many that we're going to get with affiliates in 2 ways. But we're going to have to utilize them all, and we want them all to get better. So we want them all to have reps, and this is a great way to get everyone playing. I mean, you can manipulate it in different ways. If you want your starting unit to play together, you can put them, you can go first team, second team, create some competition, whatever it is. But I do like the efficiency of movement that it has. So implementation is the last thing. So those were the tools individually talked about. Obviously, it was more philosophical, but implementation is where it gets fun. So this is a clip that came to mind as I was creating this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you got to put the volume on.
Can you hear it or no?
No, we didn't hear the volume.
How do you do that?
Look like it'd be on the right when you clicked it to play. Look like it'd be there, yeah.
Let's see. It's kind of a buzzkill, huh?
Yeah.
Apologize. Let's see. Select a microphone. Send assistant. All right. Let's see if this works. Tell me if you can hear this. Yes or no?
No.
Okay. So
Sarah Marshall.
Yeah, it's Sarah Marshall, and for the guys that have seen it, it's do less. It's the idea of doing less, and do nothing. And my belief within that, in terms of what coaching is this is the discipline that we have to have, is to give our guys the opportunity to learn. And so this is the most dynamic slide of all of them, and a lot of it is philosophical. But so the phases that we've gone through when we're introducing our offense is, phase one will be at the start of training camp. It varies for us, so it's either from like 7 days to 10 days. The first 2 to 3 days, we will not introduce any offense in terms of any actions, like no drags, no pistols, no nothing. So we're just going based off of the format that we talked about, 4 out, 5 out, introducing it to them that way. Teaching the dunker movements, teaching the principles, 2-on-0, 3-on-0 of driving kick. As the ball comes at you, move away from it. As it goes away from you, move towards it, pull behind. Going on catch, all these things. This is where we're laying our foundation for everything that we're going to do. And the use of time is I put on the side is 80-20. So like I said, 80% of basketball is played on live ball, and by live ball I mean with no stoppage, no after timeouts, after free throws, or after foul or out of bounds. So 80% of the game. So we spend 80% of our time focusing on random. We spend 80% of our time focusing on this format, these principles, because that, I believe, is the most effective use of our time. So the first third or quarter or third of training camp, we're not putting anything in. The first day will usually, or day and a half, depending on if we even cover offense on the first day. The first day we'll usually just go through the 4 out, 5 out, getting guys into the dunker off the strong side post. Like I said, working on guards, reading penetrations. If you're in the strong side corner, the ball comes at you, coming up for the DHO or going for a back cut. Just these different options that you have within the freedom that we're going to provide them. And then the most important thing about this, like I said, you saw it on the 3-on-3-on-3, the 4-on-4-on-4, is the mentality. Teaching these guys that it's not a trot. This is an aggressive mentality that we're trying to break down our initial defender, and it takes time physically and mentally for them to buy into this. Once they observe the advantages that they give them, then you got them hooked. But it does take time, and it's almost like breaking a horse mentality for me. Is let's just get them away from running a drag every time down. Let's get them away from relying on a set. Let's get them away from that and get them back to their roots of just playing the game of basketball, free, open gym mentality, aggressive, confident. So after 2 or 3 days, for us, it would be 2 or 3 days, we'll start introducing some of the basics. We'll add in the drag or a single or a double away, which throughout the 3-on-3-on-3, 4-on-4-on-4, you're going to find that they're going to start doing these things. If you do allow ball screens, you're going to get plenty of drags, or if you have no ball screens, then they're going to start running some singles or wide pin downs and double pin downs, whatever. But so then we'll work through those basics. We'll spend 2 or 3 days really dissecting the simple actions of what we're going to do as the ball handler comes off the drag screen, teaching that strong side corner man as the ball goes away from to lift up, and teaching him how to go on catch there, or how to rip and go, vice versa on a high single, if we don't have the strong, or if we don't have the guy coming off for a shot on the single action, playing back to the big guy, either playing a get game where you're throwing it and getting it back, or just running into a step up right off that action. So really dissecting all the creativity that they can have within these things, and not glazing over or assuming that they know, which I've seen a lot, even with the best players. I think sometimes forget, some of the nuances, that some of the options that they have within it. And then at the end of camp, at the middle or end of camp, that's when we start introducing, some of our high priority actions. The ones that we've leaned on over the years are pistol, the double away, which we called Seattle this year, and or even delay. I would lean towards being more simple here and introducing maybe one or two, and just maybe one off ball one, or like a single, and then one where you're running some pick and roll action like a pistol, and just letting them utilize that and play with those things for as long as you can. Each group's going to be very, very different. Um, but so those three phases for us in the G League are repetitive. So it's just going to be a circle for us. We're going to always go back and teach the principles, the mentality, the format, and then we'll always cover some of these drags and really get into detail oriented. And then the phase four is probably more so for high school, college, and the teams that will have a team for the whole year, because we have guys coming in and out. We have to keep it pretty simple for us, where we can't have too many elaborate actions, because then we'll get our guys slowing down, which is the opposite of our intention. So any questions?
Coaches, any question? Any questions here? No, no questions right now.
All right. Well, I'll go through and I just pulled a couple clips of the stuff that we worked off of, or that we've done over the years, just so you guys can get some visuals on it. Looks like we got one question. I can't see it, but if you could read it.
How long is training camp?
For us, our training camp is about 7 or 8 days. So it's you know, I know it can vary from I don't even know. I know Coach Rice here at Boise State, they've been practicing for months, so it's
Right.
different. But for us, which actually makes it more fun, because it's we want our guys to be aggressive and not think. So it's
And
fun to
then
have an aggressive team.
when do you put, you mentioned different phases. So there's a question here, like, when do you put defense in?
Well, this is, I didn't even touch on that, but defense would be, I mean, for us, defense would probably be the whole day one, shell principles and, transition defense and some of those principles. So it'd probably be defense is the majority of day one, and, even in probably half a majority of day two. The good thing about teaching this offense is in my opinion, it's the hardest thing to guard. A dribble drive, there's no set action that you can load up on, deny one phase of the offense, or sputter it out. So I mean, as you saw, defending a hard penetration, initial penetration, stopping that, and then stopping a longer closeout if you fill the gap and you have to close out onto a wing defender. In these long rotations, I think defending those are actually what really help our defense. Granted, we haven't had a lot of success defensively, to be honest.
And last question here is, how many practices a day during training camp?
I usually lean towards one. But like I said, I like to keep it simple. Depending on, I think we've done two in my 4 years. I think we've done two a couple days. But for us, a 7-day training camp, 8-day training camp, I just want our guys to be physically ready, and mentally, we're not going to give them a ton. So, that kind of takes care of it. I think where training camp gets bogged down, from my experience, is where we start putting in too much stuff that is foreign to them, or that they're trying to do for us as a coach, or they're trying to execute certain dynamic plays or things that they're not familiar with. So kind of leeching off of what they're capable of as is what we're going for.
All right, as we transition to the next section, this interesting question, which talks about the balance of being a son of a coach when practice is over. So here's a head coach who has a son in his program. How would you handle that, or tips on handling it?
I mean, I never actually played for my dad. I'm sure that's a pretty dynamic situation, so I can't really speak on that precisely. I think one thing that learning from my dad when I go to Denver when he was there and I was still playing and I trained with his staff. Um, there's basketball and then there's life. And I think maintaining that balance and that perspective, I think, is really, really important. And um, so I guess I'm not really answering your question, but I do think, the things that we're talking about, this is the easy stuff, these drills that I went through, the format, these things, these are the easy things. I think the life part is definitely by far the most important thing. So I don't have too much advice for you on that. I'm guessing it's a pretty emotional, dynamic situation.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Moving forward.
Yeah, we'll take a look at some of the clips. Okay. Yeah, we just call our open is just what we're talking about, based it off the principles. And there will be times, like I said, where I don't want our players ever relying on these actions to initiate our offense. I want our objective to always be open. Like, we want to play with freedom and aggression. And so there's a time, I think it was my first year as a head coach, but it was mid-season, and I think we were getting bogged down. So I told them I don't want any offense. I just want it all to be random, open. We're not going to run these sets all day, and more so just to get the mentality set in that aggressive mindset.
I
You
mean,
know, go ahead.
especially when you consider, your earlier point that really 80% of situations are going to, are going to happen in the flow. They're going to happen, when the advantage, disadvantage are going to happen. Uh, if only 1 out of 5 possessions really going to be kind of your traditional set with, set numbers, then, Matt, doing this and playing open and playing and getting used to this. I mean, this is going to be, figuring it out is really going to be the majority of the game, figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a strong belief of mine for, my later part of my professional career. Even my dad kind of preached it when I was younger too. But I mean, it does, like, even so, even if we're going to talk about, you're only going to have however many fast break situations in a game. So those are the easy ones. But so let's say we run a more dynamic set, something where we get a couple actions, a flex or like a chin action. What usually happens is you get to the screen and roll after the chin, and then what happens?
Figure it
I
out.
mean, yeah, you play. So this is why we teach random. Let's teach them how to succeed within that situation. After you run the chin pick and roll, you're going to have 2 offensive players on one side and one, or corners filled and a wing, and you're going to have a roller, and they're going to have to figure it out. And so, like you said, we want our offensive players to be live and active. So this is really good spacing. Gary Payton was really good at setting the step up screen on the wing. Oh, let's get back. A lot of it, like, I did stop it because a lot of it, you have to teach your wings to be patient, because they're going to get the reward eventually.
Would you say that part is you have to see where the defense sits in order to figure out where the open spot is to attack?
Well, I think yeah. So the earlier you get down there, the quicker you can start reading. So when you get to your spot, then you can start seeing, and then as we all know and feel in a game, you can see things happening, and you know where the ball's going to usually end up, right? Okay, we got a slot drive, that weak side bottom, the eye defender comes over. We know that most likely we're either going to get a swing if we hit to the corner, and he's going to have a shot, or he's going to have a decision to make on a penetration. But so I think the quicker we get to these situations and or the spots on the floor, and the more we can read, um, the easier it will be to play. And the simpler the guidelines that we have for them or rules, the easier it will be for them to succeed.
And as this is playing, a question that came in was, do you feel that opponents struggled to guard or scout your team because of the randomness that you guys played with?
I can't answer that. I know that we've maintained a really high level of pace and efficiency offensively. Like I said, defensively, I can't say the same, that we haven't had the same amount of success on that end of it. But I will tell you from the story of where this really cemented home for me was when I was an assistant coach in Westchester. I was preparing for the 905, the Raptors G League team, and Jesse Murmis was the coach. And Jesse, worked with my father in Denver a little bit, so he had some of those same concepts from John Welsh and Vance Wahlberg. Um, and what they did, it was basically the same thing. Is it was just random. Like I sat there and watched 5 games of their stuff, and I couldn't tell you what they ran. And to me, that was the most difficult thing. I couldn't like go in as we watched the scout report and tell them, hey, like if you guys do this, we're going to really, really make them struggle. And they weren't a very good team, but our team struggled with them because I think we had Mike Miller was our coach, who was extremely structured and deep with his thoughts on all these principles. So we were really structured. So if we could prepare for a team well, we usually won the game. But for some reason with that team, we really struggled because you basically just had to rely on your shell principles, your individual defense um, on the run.
Hmm.
So this is just getting in the same. This would be open, but just adding that drag screen. Sorry, adding that drag screen. Again, we got that 4-out spacing here. That was a 2-for-1 situation. That was a good example of just the open set and into a goal on catch here. And then I think this is I'll play this one more time too. I think this is a good example of what I was talking about. What John Welsh taught me was Marcus takes the bump here from the initial defender, and he keeps going. So our assistant coaches do a great job of teaching this as well. As just keep going through that initial contact, and you'll usually find some good things on the other end. So this is a little empty side pick and roll or empty drag here. So we got 3 on one side, and strong side corner is empty. We'll work through some of the nuances here. So if the ball does come up to the top of the key here, one of the principles that we'll work with is just having number 38 here, Reggie, cut through, and then we'll run that DHO with the corner man, just to get the ball to the other side of the floor and move the defense. So I added this one in too. So this is we call it Zoom in LA. So this is just a little DHL action into the pick and roll. So this is always an option. Oh, sorry. This is always an option within what we're doing for that ball handler to run down and just DHO with a strong side corner man, and then run into this drag. So this is pistol 21. And for you that do not know the action, it's my favorite action. So it's you got weak side corner or both corners filled, weak side slot filled by number 22 here. You got your 5 in the trail, or your screen and roll guy in the trail here, and we're asking our guard to come up and catch it in right off the elbow here. So right in between the elbow and the 3-point line for a deeper catch, a little throw ahead here, or he can just set a step up. So if he can't get the catch, he'll just set a step up. If he can get the catch, little rookie on PowerPoint here. If he can get the catch, then we're looking for the hand back for a layup here. We'll see what happens. So he just runs it straight into a step up. Tons of different options off of this. I think we actually premeditated this slip out here, but again, same mentality, right? Just aggressive attacking. So we get the throw ahead and then the hand back, and then we can get into a low pick and roll. Scott decides to reject it, and we get the slot cut that we've been talking about. But I mean, those are the plays that excite me, where it all comes together. You know, all the work that our assistant coaches and player development coaches have been putting in, and then our players playing to their strengths, reading a situation and finding it within what we're trying to do. Because I mean, as you can tell, there's nothing telling number 11, DeMarcus Holland, to make that cut. So now we get to a low pick and roll, the same situation we just talked about with the drag, empty side drag. This one's below the free throw line. This one we actually had a lot of success with this year. It was running this pistol, which what we would call this is we call it pistol keep. So the point guard, Pierre Jackson, would throw it to Reggie Hearn right here. Reggie will fake the handoff and then run the pick and roll with Devontae, number 12, the 5-man. And off that pick and roll, obviously we can play that. That's always a live action. But the one we had success with a lot this year is playing off that pack line defense premise of this number 11 is going to step over, take up that nail man, and then we're going to this was a after timeout play, so we're going to look for Wayne Selden here to just catch on the go and get a layup. And then so let's go back again. We're talking. He does a really good job of cutting off direct line, but when we talk about pack line defense, everyone's here, right? Pierre Jackson's man's up on the ball. We got 2 guys guarding the ball here. And then so you're just playing with a wide open court on the second side, which is with why that go on catch is so hard to guard. Because number 11, who was actually a really good defender, just versus your elite downhill drivers, Taylor Horton Tucker was our probably best at this, and then Wayne Selden had some success with it as well.
As you're running it, one question is, when players are attacking the ball on the pass to drive, does the passer throw it at the player or ahead of where the player should attack?
I mean, that's the thing that you're going to have to see and learn and watch. I think in general, that's why we're trying to ask our guys to get off the 3-point line. You're probably going to throw it more so like where he's going to shoot the ball or where he's going to catch it. But that's a feel thing, and it's something that you'll probably have to work on with your players and feel out. And it's also dependent on where the defender is as well. So this last little action that we ran, you can run it for a shooter or for a downhill driver, which we have a downhill driver here with Gary Payton, probably one of the best that I've coached at being able to get downhill to his left hand. So you run your pistol action, and then after he goes off the flare, or we actually don't even tell our big to set the flare here. We just want him to get as quick as he can to that low pick and roll. But we'll have the 5-man fake like he's going to go down to take one step and then snap back and set this rip screen for the guard out of the corner. So Gary's going to be catching this on the go. Again, another principle that we've talked about is that momentum. Let's see if we get it here. This would Talon. This would have been a great opportunity for him to make that slot cut. As you can see, all the defense coming in. This is something we tried this year, which I actually really enjoyed as I keep fluttering back and forth here with the use of PowerPoint. So we started it off, it's the same pistol action, but we started off corners filled, and then we had our best playmaker off the ball and a guard to guard alignment here. So you can see Pierre Jackson with the ball here. Right here behind him is David Stockton. So we're going to run pistol for David, but we're just going to add this DHO, this guard to guard DHO to kind of mess with the defense, change sides, and not be able to load up on that guard catch that will be taking place over here on the right wing. Just a little DHO, little extra movement to get into the action. So moving on to delay. For the guys who don't know, delay is just what most NBA teams are calling this 5-out set right here. So I think this is actually after timeout play, but I think Houston does this, or RGV has done this at a really elite level, utilizing delay with their 5-out system. But we don't have a ton of principles, again, trying to figure out just different ways to set flares and pin downs for our guys, DHOs. And then if unders, rescreens, just playing off of principles and random. So let's see what we got here. This is another basic principle that you can teach out of this random action, especially if you're going to rerun delays, stuff where your bigs are up top. Is just a simple, as the 5-man sets the screen or this DHO, if he goes underneath it, automatically it's going to be a rescreen. So I prefer if our 5-man here takes one step away and then comes back and gets a better angle, and I would actually prefer the ball handler to take one, like a fake dribble up the floor to move that defender so you can set him up. But if he goes under, we're automatically going to snap back into a rescreen. This is also a really good offense for when you don't have a great primary playmaker or pick and roll player on the ball. Gets everyone kind of involved and moving, gets the ball to the second side of the floor. Oh, dang it. Go back to here. So this is the last one I have on all this is we just used to call this hip. So it's the same format, corners filled, except this time we're going to start. This is probably more of a dead ball situation. Corners filled, and then we'll have a 2-guard front coming up. So 2-guard, the lane line extended, or the ball handler, and the other off guard will be lane line extended. And it's just a simple DHO in the middle of the court into a little step up. A lot of different stuff you can do out of this. I'll go on catch by David. So Kostas ends up getting the dunk on that one, but preferably teaching this, we do want this DHO to happen at the 3-point line. So here we want to engage the defense, bringing 2 to the ball, hopefully getting some confusion or making them think a little bit. And then we want this guy starting at this elbow or even lower, depending on how good of a feel he has, and then stepping up. And we wanting, as the DHO is happening, giving the primary ball handler's defender 1 step, but then being right behind the ball here. So Kostas gives a little too much space. Ideally, we would want Kostas stepping right into here as he's making that decision and reacting to overreacting. So, or stepping up and nailing this defender here, creating more space. So as Kostas steps up the floor here, it creates more space for Pierre to play behind the ball in this area. And then also more space for Kostas to roll down in this area. So
Awesome. We went over time as well.
quickly.
Yeah. Any last questions for Coach Karl here, who's really driven it from kind of macro and how to layer it into some specific sets. Even with the video, sometimes us having to redo it. Question here is hip, sort of like a Princeton. Would you consider the hip action being like a Princeton?
I've never studied Princeton. The only really system offenses I know are like the chin and flex and triangle. So I've never studied it. I can't really speak on that.
Another question here from the audience. For those that want to connect with you, what's the best way if they want to stay in contact?
I have a LinkedIn account, so that's the best way, or bother Chris Oliver.
Awesome. And great stuff, very thorough, really good, and looking forward to getting you guys back on the court and doing what you do, coaching them up. So hoping,
Yeah.
longing for those days here, longing for that.
For sure.
Well, great stuff, Coach, that you get back to the family, and looking forward to connecting again real soon.
All right. All the best. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Appreciate it.